Occultists, do Occultists Anonymous, and our Into the West Chronicle. Yeah, I have one. Yeah. So did you watch me and Chris, or did you start with Craig, or did you start with Ralph? Maybe who'd you start with? Anyways, thank you all for coming out, supporting us. We appreciate it. Special shout out to our patrons: Adele, Alice, Aiden, Al, Alexander, Ulstrat, BBL, Drizzy, Bernie, Buck, Chris, Doc, Emil, Ethan, Jeff, George, I'm the Real 06, James, Camo, Cat Feathers, Klaus, Live Love, Lesbian, Milo V3, Moku, Mozart D Minor, Nexus, Nick, Other Guy, Perry, Foog, Polka Dot, Hubris, Porter, Puppeteer, Riafio, Sean, Shaxara, Starfish, Terran, Terry D, Thomas, Verhext, Vincent, Vortex. Oh, he's messing with me. It's not Vortex Falcon. This is Vortex. How dare they? And Zoltan. Thank you all so much for your support. It means a lot to us. Yes, we are doing more vignettes here. Or maybe, yes, this is our vignettes. If you missed the other one, I don't know. Why are you watching these out of order? How should I order these?
Well, there isn't really an order to them.
No, it's just how I recorded them.
It's sort of like a fork in the story.
Right. Yeah. Just pick your path, and then it'll come kind of converge back around. So yes, when we last left, Theodosia had come out of an emanation realm. It's okay, honey. I'll be back in just a couple days. 2 weeks later, and everyone went, "Oh, Theo's in big trouble." So we left off, I believe, with some foot rubs, and Catherine going, "You know what? You keep talking about this stuff. You keep telling me about these places, and this magic that you see, and these weird things, and I want you to take me there. Take me to this place where you slept once over 2 weeks."
So, yes. It's not my place. I was a guest there. I would need to make arrangements for an invitation. Sometimes things are a little prickly that way. We don't invade other people's territory without smoothing things over first.
You have to ask permission. I can understand that.
Mm-hmm. But if you want to, there's things closer to home I could show you.
And there is that sharp head turn, and she turns and looks over her shoulder into the house. You know, the nice window that you put in
on the porch, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Theo's sitting on the
Yeah, and
she's up in her chair, and Theo's on the ground, and
yeah. And she looks back into the house and looks back. How close?
Nothing in the house.
I guess that makes me feel better. How close?
Theo gets up and dusts off her skirt and holds out a hand.
Okay.
I need to do something first.
Okay. And and as you have acquiesced to her in her head, this incredible demand, take me to this magic place, right? And the fact that you acquiesced, it's like, okay, I gotta hold off, but you're not saying no. I gotta ask permission. All this seems reasonable. And now, but there's stuff I can show you now. You watch as it's the giddy schoolgirl energy, right? Of the wait, hang on, is this really actually happening? She's of course never asked, but now there's this opportunity, and there's some nerves too. But yeah, takes your hand and kind of stands up, and what is it we have to do?
I can provide you. Okay. The process of opening your mind to a broader reality can sometimes be traumatic. there's some danger that when you learn that the rules that govern reality aren't really firm, it can be shocking to the psyche.
Oh, so is this dangerous for me? Is that what you're saying?
It might cause some just it's like a mental shock to see things that in your head can't be real, but you're seeing them. And the only reason you know that they can't be real is I'm not explaining this very well. There's a lie that covers everything like a blanket, and people live in that lie, so they see the lie and they believe it real. Some of us have been able to pierce that veil and see reality more as it is rather than the lie would have us believe. But that process can be jarring. I can protect you for a time, um, but I want you to know that there is some danger.
But you'll be with me the whole time.
I will be with you as long as you want me there.
Okay. So she nods. Just to add a little note, do you mention that she will not remember things normally?
Um, yes, that she may have trouble because of the mental shock. She may have trouble hanging on to what she sees.
Okay. Yeah. So she nods, gives your hand a squeeze. She's like, okay. So I'm going to write it down.
Okay.
And like runs inside because I'm sure you don't have tons of paper lying around, but there's probably enough for because I mean you're a businesswoman. You have a ledger at least. And so she
And
finds
yeah, there would be lined paper books. Yeah, for sure.
yep. So she finds couple pieces of paper and real rudimentary. I guess yeah they would have pencils at the time if I remember correctly. Yes. So she gets a pencil and she nods and has that kind of tucked to her side in her hand. It's a bit of a really tight squeeze on it, like she's hanging onto it, and then grabs your hand again. Okay, let's go.
Just one more thing. I want you to know whatever you see, whatever you hear, whatever happens, I love you. That's
Like
that is the truth of the universe.
sure. So she nods and she's like, I love you too. Stop saying the scary things. Because you can see that the nerves and excitement keep bouncing back and forth for her.
And I will cast Stealing Fire.
Cool. What kind of duration do you put on it? Of course, you can end it whenever you want.
Yes, I think I want to give myself a lot of time to. I can't even do that. I'm going to have to clean up a big mess after this all time. But let's go with let's just go for indefinite.
Okay, cool. Let's set it at 1 year. That way you don't have to spend a mana. And yeah, with Prime 5 now, that's your default duration. So it's literally Gnosis plus Prime. I'm not even going to make you roll it. She's not, withstanding it. So, and just like that, she feels something. Do you use any yantras or do you just cast it?
I would definitely be using my bone cane.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So there's a little bit of motion. There's a little production, air quotes, right, into it. So and then the spell goes off, and for you feel it. For her, it's nothing, right? She doesn't notice anything, she doesn't feel anything. She's kind of giving you this side eye, because for her, she's like, okay, and then my eyes open and she looks around and there's nothing.
And I become Baba Sarah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you put on the persona and the shift, and which we've talked about it before. This is the Superman to Clark Kent, right? Nobody's without magic. You're not changing shape or anything like that, but just that hunch and that aspect of yourself. And she kind of looks at you, and because she can see you in it, she can see Theodosia in Baba Sarah, and she's, what are you doing?
We, for a bunch of different reasons, keep our lives separate, mostly to protect those we love. When I work magic, this is who I am.
And she
And we go ahead.
she kind of, her hand comes back out of yours, and she takes that step back, and she's not afraid or anything like that, but it's the appraisal of you, the review of you now. And she, there's little curl at the lip, and she says, you look like a storybook character. You look like you stepped out of one of the tales from the old country. She kind of, but she's amused by it, not mockery, right? But she's like, okay, I can see this is a character that you're playing. You're an actor.
This is a shield that I put on to protect you, Velocia, and me. It's like I'm a different person.
That is probably the first time you see concern, right? Where she's like, what do you mean by that?
Just like that there are good people and bad people in the world, and neutral people and people that just don't really fit into one or the other. In the world of magic, there are people who are the same. But instead of guns and knives, they use magic. Some are good people who seek to leave the world better than they found it, and others want to see it all burned down. Or
And
use their powers for self aggrandizement, or just like regular people. But the power that they have makes those extremes a lot worse.
and when you are like this, who are you? Because I know who
I am
you are when
Baba.
you are Theodosia.
I am Baba Sarah, advocate for the dead, and um, uh, guide spirits to their best.
And she has the little head wobble, and she's like, so still Theodosia. Just you
Yes,
actually do it now instead of she hesitates to say it, but she's, I think we're before the era of air quotes, but she says, but you really do it now, not a party trick.
Well, it wasn't necessarily a party trick before.
Right. And she knows that. Because you trained Valosia, and I would bear to say that Catherine has seen Valosia speak to a ghost before, right?
So there's different kinds of magic. The stuff that my mother taught me and that I taught Valosia is what we call, and this isn't a value or a judgment, it's called fallen magic. It's magic used by people who can't see through the veil like we can, but can still sometimes, if things are lined up properly, touch aspects of it. When I'm like this, I am seeing the world as it is. I can pierce the lie and change the rules. This may be a little shocking, Theo says, and then she's going to flare Nimbus.
Ooh. Which, hey, yeah, good job. We get over there. So yeah, and for the podcast folks, and to really amp it up, because this is just a little visual representation. What is that for Catherine? What does she see and feel? And
It's like a swirling, like the shadows deepen, and there's like a swirling kind of slow moving swirl of like small spirits sort of radiating out from her in a expanding kind of cyclone pattern. Um, and just the night feels darker. The lights are dimmer. The shadows are a lot deeper.
and even though you are the center of that, she still kind of draws closer to you. That need for like protection. It is dark, and she kind of like, and now she's seeing it, and now her eyes get wide, and the distance between Victorian era mediums and seances and party tricks, and then the real deal is a big gulf, right? Um, and so she kind of draws in and looks at you, and then kind of looks out. And I'm realizing now, what we may potentially want to just do a little retcon is, do you also cast, because you have Prime 5, Apocalypse, and give
Not
her
yet.
Mage Sight? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And that was the other. I was like, do we do it now or do we introduce that later? So yeah. She gets that the Nimbus tilt, which I don't ever remember if we actually identified for
Increased
everybody.
composure.
Right. So, it's just this kind of, chill. And I think that actually kind of makes sense for her to draw closer. She feels a little less, she feels a little more distressed. It passes very quickly, because the Nimbus tilt, especially when you flare your Nimbus, doesn't last, more than just a couple seconds. But she's like, okay, that's something.
We can keep
Yeah.
following this. Okay. Theo's going to take her out into like way in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's a yard, like the field behind our house.
Right.
I'm going to take you to my workshop.
It doesn't have little elves making shoes, does it?
No, there's a large iron golem.
Ooh, which actually makes me, just for historical accuracy, when did we have the golem? 16th century. Okay, cool. Yeah. Carry on. She nods.
And Theo extends her hands, and the ground opens up.
Yep.
And reveals a staircase leading into the dark.
She looks down. She's like, so when you went on walks in the evening, this is where you were coming?
Sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I was tending to a new ghost in town, helping them decide what they want to do. Often I was here.
She nods, and at this point she's kind of let go of your hand again, and kind of walked right up to the steps, kind of peering down into it. And if I remember correctly, it has the blue light down there from the lantern. And she's looking. She's like, "Is it safe to go down?" Like she's ready to take the lead right down in there. And so she's careful to walk down. I imagine there's probably no railings here. And for Baba Sarah, the steps are just the right length and stride for her step, right? But for Catherine, walks down. She also doesn't have a cane. to aid her. But yeah, she's you know quite able and steps down into the lab, which if I remember correctly, isn't like it's not huge. It's just large enough for you to do your work.
It's quite deep,
Mm-hmm.
um, so the noises and stuff aren't audible from the surface.
So you don't want to accidentally dig it up when plowing the field. And, yeah.
That's right. That's right. So it's quite deep, and I guess the first thing she would see is Besnick.
Mm-hmm.
He was there, like he's lab assistant slash, like not fine motor control lab assistant, but hold this for me lab assistant and
Yep.
the guardian. So she would hear, I think, the creak of metal and realize that this big iron statue in the corner is actually moving.
Mm-hmm. And it's a kind of rudimentary statue, right? It's not like you grabbed some
Yeah,
fine marble statue and it's roughshod. Oh my gosh.
it's iron. It's like a pitted and
Yep.
effectively
That's
made
true
out of
because it's also
scrap.
probably a bunch of scrap iron that you haven't,
Mhm.
because it used to be scrap iron, but
Right. I've shaped it into the shapes that I needed, but I haven't worried too much about like there'd be rust and things on it just because a lot of the stuff came from the earth.
mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and so
Not smart enough to speak or anything, but it can follow simple commands.
yep, and if I remember correctly, we didn't even say it was very tall; it's just humans sized, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
but bulky, like
Right.
it's wide, quite wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she immediately, down the steps, kind of watching her feet more than anything, and then hears metal and looks up and
And Theo, without meaning to, she's kind of lurking.
sure, yeah, it's because she's Baba Sarah.
Yeah, she's lurking at the stairs, and she says, "That is Besnick.
You named him?
I created him."
And like the pure joy on her face as she looks at you and she says, "He's our son."
There isn't much of an intelligence. He can follow simple commands.
He's our pet.
That's probably closer to it.
Okay. Is he safe?
As long as, well, he will always be safe to you.
Did you plan that I might find this place?
Besnick is not the only guardian of our home.
And like the side eye that you get. we will talk about that later. For now, because your lab in my head, right, doesn't
There's jars of like body parts and
right. It is not a hermetic mage glowing runes kind of thing. This is an alchemist necromancer's lair. The fact that you have 5 prime is because of your stuff with souls and awakening and pursuing that. You're still a Moros, still an alchemist and necromancer. And
this is where she puts her Moros on. Yeah.
Right. Yes. I like that. And because for the sanctum to work and for the domain, because if I remember correctly, this is a domain, right? It has to be appropriately themed. So yeah, there isn't a lot of side prime stuff going on in here. This is all going to be very necromancy kind of stuff. And so she walks over and kind of pats Bisnick on the chest, as like, yes, I am really seeing this, and then looking around, and there's the jars, which of course, from our audience perspective, there's some bubbles that come up in some, there's a little
formaldehyde.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Some odd glows. The smell down here is probably horrendous just because,
it's in the earth and you're smelling.
And but she looks about,
faint notes of decay. Yeah.
And she slowly out comes the pencil and paper. She starts writing, and you watch because she writes very, very carefully to make sure it's clear it's her handwriting. She's writing it, that kind of thing. and like you know, kind of, you're not meaning to look over her shoulder, or maybe you do, but you can very clearly see, dear Catherine, like, today we went down into Theo's lab, you know, and she starts writing really like quick, short messages and stuff like that of the things that she's seeing down here. Bisnick, and you know, does a kind of slow turn, mostly because I don't want us to spend our time just
Sure.
here. Yeah. So she looks around and like notes things down, and you see some like rudimentary sketches. Catherine is no artist, but there's definitely like some little stuff, you know. Oh yeah, the, you know, little jars on a shelf, which I imagine the shelf itself is just made out of the dirt.
It's
It
just
just kind
hollowed
of
out.
juts
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Just, yeah.
You know, why bother
Yeah,
with
it's more like
furniture?
there's a recess in the wall that serves as a shelf. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, just, and so she's making little sketches, and I imagine Theo kind of explains some of this, some of that.
She'll answer any questions that Catherine
Mhm.
poses.
And she doesn't try to understand. She is the tourist at the aquarium, right? Asking some really rudimentary questions, and they're very, very surface level, which as a mage with Gnosis 5, you know, it's the aquarium biologist speaking to the
Yeah, yeah.
kindergartner. And yes, that is pretty, isn't it? Yes. You know, and it's way beneath you. But this is Catherine, and for the first time, she's asking real questions about what it is that you do, um,
So
and
I want to circle back to something she had touched on. There are I have made our house a safe space.
mhm. And that's what I was going to mention when you come
Mhm.
out. So yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Roll with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have protections. Our house will never catch fire. Our house will never be struck by lightning. If anyone attempts to harm anyone living in that house, they will have a bad day. But all of these protections that I've put in place, none of them will ever, ever be dangerous to you or Velocia. That is like built into their wiring or
They're being.
their being. It's a fundamental truth for them.
She nods. She smiles. She's like, "Never be struck by lightning. Never catch fire." See, that is the kind of thing I really hope I remember, because it would make those thunderstorms. Have you ever noticed how many thunderstorms we get here in Purgatory Bluff? I've never
She
lived. I've never seen it. And like, she looks at your
that
face,
Theo
the
does
expression,
does
right?
the
Yeah,
face.
and she goes, "Did you do that?"
No, that is not one of my gifts.
But you know who
Um,
did.
I do.
Okay.
There is an unusual number of, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call them will workers. There's an unusual number of will workers that sort of coalesced in this town independently. We didn't all decide to move here, but when we got here, we just sort of found that there was a bunch of other people here already here.
Independently of your own choices, but somewhere
Yes.
in Archmage Rilla, twiddling her, twisting her mustache. Yeah. So she nods. She goes, "Okay, I'm not gonna ask, because I'm sure you have some layer of secrecy and promises made to one another and stuff like. But I
There are,
can guess."
yeah, I'm sure that you can form some hypotheses. It would
She's
be improper of me to reveal them without their permission.
and she nods, and like there is a like the hands come up. She's like, I understand this is, I'm getting to peek in the window of your secrets, and so I will enjoy what I can see from the window. I promise I won't pry. But you can see it in her head. The gears are turning. She's trying to
Mhm,
figure out who it would be, because it's going to be one of, well, two, because it's not Helena, even though you started to hang out with her.
mhm.
And well, maybe it was maybe it was Gisela, but Gisela's not here and the thunderstorms are still here. So it comes down to two, really, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so
Catherine's
she,
not dumb. She's able to put two and two together.
yeah.
That wouldn't be a difficult.
It's like, oh yeah, it's really weird how Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne seem to be out of town every time the world is attacked. Like, hang on, let's start to put two and two together. I like that. So she nods and she's like, okay, so we're protected. The house is protected. That feels better considering all the things I saw down there. And she kind of looks back at the basement. Oh, is there more around here?
Let's go to the mill.
Okay. And she kind of like looks back as you guys start to walk towards the mill and looks over her shoulder, and I'm sure gets to watch as the earth closes up over top of the lab, and like this expression of like, how have I never noticed? And the answer is she may have, but quiescence just zapped it out of her head. So yeah, you guys make your way over to the mill. I can't remember what's over at the mill.
Well, most textile mills are very dangerous places.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people get hurt, and they're very, very hot. Ours isn't. I've I've either made or warded the machinery to protect our workers. When the building was built, I encouraged airflow. You'll see when we get in there. So in my head, this is like a calm night. There's not a breeze
Oh yeah.
blowing.
Mm.
Yeah. But as we get inside the mill, like there's air moving. Like there's a fairly constant
It's a
breeze that just
fresh it's a fresh interior, surprising. It's not air conditioned.
Nope.
But yeah, it just feels like air is
But there's
constantly moving.
always like a light wind blowing.
She looks around, and she, now that you've pointed it out, right? Because it's got to be subtle. And
Mhm.
and now that you've pointed it out, she's like, okay, that that is very nice. But I thought you said that magic is dangerous, or to us, and kind of touching herself.
There is something, well, it's dangerous if they discover it, but on the other side of the coin, the presence of people like our workers and Theodosia, just because of how deeply you're wrapped in the lie, has the effect of unraveling magic just by being around it, by seeing it. So I have to redo these wards on a regular basis. Some of the times when I'm out at night, that's what I'm doing. We call it quiescence
Dissonance, actually, but yeah.
or dissonance, pardon. We
Yep.
call it dissonance. Just the presence of people who can't see through the lie has that effect on magical constructs and spells and magical effects over time. It's not instant, like you don't touch something and it falls apart, but over time that magic will become weakened and unraveled.
She nods her head. And that's why you have to be careful. She's like getting it. You're watching. She makes a couple little notes on her paper as she kind of walks through the mill and touches some of the some of the equipment, and like she's trying to see the magic, not necessarily prompting you to cast apocalypse. Just
Right, but
she's
as she's doing that, Theo would say, I can let you see it. The problem is you won't be able to unsee it.
Okay. So just for a short time then.
I Yes, I could remove the spell, but while the spell is on, it's not like you can close your eyes and shut your ears. You will just see and hear and be aware of everything around you.
So she
See the world like I see
and seeing it as a Moros is a hell of a way to see it.
it. Yes.
It's not like, at least with the Obrimos, you have, be not afraid angels floating around. This is this
That's
is
right.
this is Moros. She kind of she nods and and walks over to you and grabs your hand and kind of like you see her put on her battle face, right? The like, all right, we're gonna do this. And so she's looking around and she nods. She's like, okay. And I would suspect that you are giving probably not even the full gump of duration, because that's 10 turns is 30 seconds. So I'm
Mhm.
sure this is just a small little spell,
Yes.
short duration. Oh yeah, and that's prime 4 anyways, yeah. Forge purpose is the one that's at 5. Okay.
It's on. How does she react?
The question for you is, what arcanum do you give her sight for? By default, it's the mage side attuned to the path. So basically, um, for you, and the exact reading of this is death and matter. But do you put prime in there as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's my thinking. I I love tomorrow's view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's Theo, but Theo's aware that it can be a little much for some people.
Mm-hmm.
So by throwing some prime in there, it kind of gives her the light in the background, sort of.
Well, and bear in mind, what we're talking about is mage sight, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So death and matter, she'd see souls and
Mhm.
the value and strength and durability of the machinery, but prime would let her see spells.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, she grabs your hand probably tighter than ever. You're gonna, you're going to have bruises, right?
Mhm.
That it is a death grip, haha. And her mouth opens and it's not a scream, it's just this wordless oh, like it's somewhere well beyond uh you know uh excitement. She's into it. It is legit awe, right? Because now she's seeing the world building up and crumbling down. She's seeing, probably a supernal being or two that float about. I imagine there's probably one or two of matter that just really likes this place because you've done so much to it that they're just kind of settled in. And so there's some Apiron that's floating around, that's of the mill, right? That's kind of settled into this. Not, you haven't perfected it, but you're kind of doing it piece by piece, right?
It's
And
hard
has
work because it keeps unraveling.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And but then the prime is there, that actually that glow, which again, it's the Moros vibe of things, and but it's there, right? And
And behind all of that, I guess, would be like a backdrop to truth of existence
Mhm.
in the supernal.
Yep, yeah, because she is getting the Moros supernal world view of things, Stygian view of things, and it takes on a different cast, and it is a Moros and Stygian stuff can be depressing on the surface. But as Craig, you and I have both gone over talking about Moros, Moros is not about death and endings, it's about transition and change. And yes, death is scary, but to pull the Gandalf Tolkien line,
Mhm.
then the veil pulls back, and then there's endless green country, and it's a new adventure. But for everybody else, they don't necessarily get that. So yeah, she is getting the depressing, oh what, and watching as the mill seems to be crumbling away in parts, and she goes from the hand grip to the pencil and paper falling to the ground and just grabbing onto your arm. But she doesn't say anything. Well, she doesn't tell you to stop or even seem in pain, because
Stealing
she
fire.
right. And the willpower dots, let's see here, I'm trying to remember the term for, right, willpower to keep it active. So she's not even having to use willpower to keep looking. And then it all goes away, and like she finally inhales again, kind of thing. Or actually, she probably finally exhales, like she was holding her breath. It's gone. Where? What? It,
Lion has come back from.
and that's how you
So
see everything all the time.
it's like I can shift my perspective with a thought. I can see the world just like you do, but I'm aware of other things. And if I take a moment to shift my perspective in my head, I can see all of that. And that's how I see the world.
I'm trying to decide how Catherine reacts to this, because it is in my nature to make snarky comments, but
Mhm.
I think Catherine gives you and a different perspective, just makes you do things a little different, don't you? Like there's this puzzle piece that drops because she knew you before you
Mm.
awoke. Um, and well, no,
No, no.
no, yep. So for her, she's like, and now there's that missing puzzle piece that completes the Theodosia picture. Way back when you had met, you were still newbie mage, but you
Mhm.
had the Moro's Stygian perspective on things. And so
So it would put it this way is that when I look at you, I can see you fading in front of my eye. But that means that I treasure the time that we have together because I know that it's fleeting. I see that every day.
she
That's why
nods
I
her
try
head.
and live life to the fullest and
Mhm.
take all the joy and solace that I can.
And to not play your character, but it's also the reason when bad things happen, you go, yep, that sucked, and then move on, right?
Yes.
Which is something that I think Catherine and probably most people in reality have a hard time moving on. But one of the mill workers, in the past decade has at some point or another passed away, right?
Mhm.
Or in a friend from Purgatory Bluff has passed away, and everybody else is torn up and devastated about it. And Theo probably was like, "Yes, this sucks. We went to the funeral. We said very nice things. We cared for their family, but in my head, correct me, I don't feel like Theo dwelt on it."
No, Theo would definitely take care and reverence to honor the transition.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but it wasn't an
But it
emotional thing on
yeah,
her.
it's
And
just it's a state change that needed to be recognized.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And it's also being, the widow Stokes, right?
Yes.
That's the other thing is like everybody, oh yeah, she's just this, she's the foundation of the farming community, right? Because anything happens, the fire that came through that one year, and we rebuilt, and she was just like, we'll just get through this. And she was, and it's like, and for Catherine, like the the cylinders twisted, the puzzle piece laid in, and like now she understands where that comes from. Not to take away from who Theodosia is, but it's like when you have this perspective and are
Things are
reminded
just
about
in
it.
a sharper focus.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she nods and she's like, okay, that was amazing, terrifying, and grotesque. Like thinking about some of the supernal beings that probably, flit about. Some of them are
Mhm.
not pleasant to look at. I can understand why this is why it distracts you from us sometimes. Like and you can hear she's trying to say it as gently and
And yeah,
delicately as possible. But
it
yeah,
still stabs.
yeah. And it's just like and like
It never never distracts me from you. It pulls me away, and I begrudge every moment that it does. But there are things that I have to do. I feel that I have to do to keep the world a safer place for everyone, but most importantly for you and Valencia.
she nods, she oh actually, I think when you say that, that's another thing kind of hits her. And like she's still like she has not let go of your arm since then. It went from the terror to the like, no, I'm just this is cozy now, even though you Baba Sarah, right? Just snuggle up with Smeagol there, it'll be fine. And she stops, she's just like, how much does Valosia know? How much has Valosia seen? Because clicking that, you've trained her to be a medium, right?
Um, I have not shown her any of this.
Okay.
For me, it's important that somebody consent is not necessarily the word,
Mm-hmm.
because it's hard to consent to something that you have no idea what you're consenting to.
Yeah, she nods. She's like, "Yep, nope."
Um, but I would never have shown her any of this
No,
until
and yeah, and Catherine is
not.
shaking her head. Yeah, it's like, no, no, absolutely not. No, she's
So and this might be difficult for you to hear. We haven't done this before, but we've had conversations before about what I can do and what I do, and often you just don't remember them, and that is the power of the lie. To and Theo's like there's some venom in her voice. It steals that from you. It steals so much. It takes and it takes and it takes. That's why I've been trying to understand. We we call it awakening when you first are able to pierce through the lie and see the world. Um, I've been trying to understand how to make those happen. It's the driving force behind pretty much everything I do as a mage. I would love nothing more than for you to live in this world with me. And
that.
I wish I knew how.
And she pauses and like turns and looks about, and she's like, "I mean, this isn't this isn't it. This isn't me joining. This isn't the start of
I
that."
Because of my gifts, I'm able to give you a glimpse behind the curtain, but
But then I'll forget it.
you may, and it may be painful as the lie steals it from you, steals this that we've shared, this understanding that we've achieved. It's going to try and steal it from you. from us. We've had these talks so many times. It's so hard every time, but I always try to share with you as much as I can, as much as you're willing to take.
She nods and like she's listening. She hears it in your voice, and then like picks up the pencil and paper, and she's like, "No, no, 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 no," and like holds that tight so she doesn't lose it. And she nods. She's like, "Okay, I understand." Well,
But I would do this over and over and over 100 times if you asked me, knowing that you'll probably have it all stolen from you.
I mean, debating how. No, I think Catherine nods. Um, Is almost said, "Oh yeah, I could just live like this," but I don't think Catherine's there yet. But
Mm.
she nods and she's like, "Okay, well, have I ever done this before?" Holding up the paper.
Um, there was one time that you tried, but in the after the lie took hold, it caused if somebody handed you a piece of writing that you have never seen before, but you can tell by looking that it's your handwriting, that can be shocking, disturbing, and sometimes you haven't reacted well. Understandably, the lie is a powerful force. It's very difficult to resist it.
Okay. Well,
But it matters a lot to me that you're trying.
she hugs close. There's a kiss, right?
Mhm.
One of those good, like we're both kind of teary eyed, kind of moments, and then like clinging to you. And she's like, "Okay, well,
Yeah, this was obviously like a very sore point for
right,
Theo, the
right,"
theft.
and like, and I feel like there's that the dynamic shift, right, where it goes from she clinging to you to now she holding you, right, and there's that soft dynamic switch, and she's holding and she's like, "Okay, well, we're gonna try this again, and I'm gonna write some more notes to myself, and then we'll see where this goes." But having seen what I just saw, which, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, but we've never done Stealing Fire, we've never done Apocalypse. This
She
is right.
couldn't do Stealing Fire until recently.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Mhm.
So she nods and she's like, "So we're gonna," and she holds onto the paper, right? We're gonna try this again, and then we're gonna talk some more, and maybe we'll try again. Maybe we'll try something new. We'll we'll see if I can live with you like this. We'll keep trying, and I
And
hope I
I
say that again tomorrow.
and I will not forget my promise to show you the Tempest. To try and show you the Tempest.
Okay, now let's go home.
Okay.
um, and since you left the spell on for a year, we'll leave it on, and we'll discuss breaking points and stuff like that. Probably next time, mostly because I feel like this would be a good moment to get Legba Cloak involved, walk through some meditation and stuff like that, where we can try and help Catherine, because Catherine's on board,
Mhm.
you know, for this next step, this next trial.
As
Um,
we're walking back to the house, can we have a so in matters of the soul, because Theo's a bit of a student of this all. There's a inside all of us. There's something that we refer to as the daemon, which is sort of your inner self, your inner truth. I've been able to. I didn't even know this was possible, but I've been able to talk to your daemon. The lie is very present. It's like a hostile observer when I'm there, but I don't know if maybe that's a path I might be able to explore. Do you remember when I was gone for that trip for weeks and you were maybe it was dreams that you were having that I was okay?
Oh, you're talking about like a decade ago.
Yeah, yeah, 10
Right.
years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. And she nods. She's like, yeah. Yeah, they're really vivid dreams. Yeah.
I was able to, um, and I didn't know if I was able to talk to your daemon and ask her to tell you that I was okay.
It worked.
Yeah, and I've been thinking that maybe that's a way I can try and bridge you into this world. I I don't know, but I'm looking at other options, ways to for us to be together in this.
She nods. It's kind of, flying over
Mhm.
her head. She's like, I mean, if it you know this more than I, but I'm okay with trying, different methods, different ways to do this, things that maybe I'll remember. Um,
That's a good question, Catherine. Does your daemon remember?
I will
That
say,
is
as the GM,
mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah, the daemon is not affected. Like memories are separate Goetia. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's true. Yeah, Damon probably is fully cognizant of all the weird stuff that happens, but isn't necessarily always able to communicate it up the
But
chain.
also probably very unhappy that all the weird stuff's been happening because the daemons are to protect
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
individual, right?
Yep.
Is one of their roles.
Yep.
So they'd be really angry with me next time we meet.
Yep.
What the hell were you thinking? Yeah,
That's
this has
good.
been great.
So yeah, you guys have a nice moonlit stroll back to the house, back through the yard,
And
and
as we're walking back to the house, I'll leave the Baba Sarah persona image slash and use that walk to turn back into Theo.
right, because Valosia is at home and she doesn't need to see Baba Sarah.
No.
Catherine, no, Baba Sarah, Baba Yaga's come to take you away. um. So yeah. You both go to sleep. Um.
I don't
Nice
know
and
that
warm.
Theo would sleep, but yeah, she'll be in bed.
Right. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the better. You both go to bed,
Yes.
and I imagine Theo realizing that. Well, I only had one night of sleep in 2 weeks. Let me just lie awake here for a second. Um, and well, actually, wait, I take that back. Because you don't have Astral Adept, so you can't go into the Euroneros from here. Um, because you don't have another domain in the house, if I remember correctly. It's just in the lab.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. So
Yeah.
your plans for the evening?
Just stay and be with her
Mm-hmm.
and figure out how the hell I'm going to clean up everything once it all comes unraveling when
I mean, on the
ceiling
plus
fire
side,
falls off.
you've got a year
Yes.
technically, unless you want to drop it. Um, and yeah, so you have a moment or two there. Well, quite a few moments in the evening to think about what you've done and remembering that a decade ago, a bunch of these, Diamond Order guys rolled up and told you, "Hey, there's some things you shouldn't do, and this is not only one of them. This is several of them that you
She's
shouldn't
aware.
do."
According to the Diamond Order,
Yep.
this is all bad, whatever.
And a decade ago, it seemed like silly rules. Now you're like, wait, hang on.
Well, Theo knows that there's
Right.
a big risk.
Consequences. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Cool. So we can put a pin in it there, or because we have a little bit of time left, we can pick up the next morning and you sneaking off to the lab.
Okay.
If you want to dive into your Neros for a little bit.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, we jump. Morning comes up. Catherine comes over to you and just kind of quietly, she's like, "I remember. Still remember."
I'm allowing it. I'm keeping the lie at bay for now.
She nods. She smiles and she's like, "Okay, I think I have some plans too." And you guys go about your daily chores and stuff like that. But you'll notice Catherine has gotten out a little diary or some journal and is starting to add more to it.
She's very conscious of how precocious and mischievous Velosia can be. Is Velosia in the house?
Oh, probably, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure especially between the three of you, there is that definite listen, the journal, the diary, right, is sacrosanct, right? Nobody messes with that. The three of us,
That's like a supernal house rule.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody looks at a diary. Yeah.
Yeah. We all know it's and for me, it's one of those, this is where I can write the mean things or the upset things down so I don't say them aloud. Right. I never had a journal as a kid, but it was one of those things that later I was like, man, probably would have been better if I'd just written some of the angry things down instead of letting them out in my mouth.
Let them out.
Yep.
So head to the workshop.
Yep. And we jump into Euroneros. You are quite adept at it. I don't know that you've been making regular visits. But I know you and your Damon were on a little bit better terms last we saw.
There was a bit of a detente.
Yeah.
But the last 10 years, we haven't really progressed far. So,
no.
And Theo's frustrated with that. So her Damon's probably going to be outraged.
Yeah.
Her one subject she had that was partially willing to explore is dried up. So she's had nothing to do for years.
Yeah.
To satisfy that itch.
And then lots of absolutely atrocious dreams. Like if when you don't kind of center yourself before going to sleep and prepare, you just have these horrendous dreams. In the dreams, you're having a grand time. But when you wake up, you're like, "Oh, I was doing terrible things." No, no.
And when Enright died, that would have set off a whole new wave of because now Ike's in charge.
Well, I mean, that was probably one where your Damon showed up and was like,
"Okay, now it's time to get serious."
Yeah, we could dude's in the grave, but that's not a problem to us. We can get him up and dancing, and he can do and say whatever we want him to say. Right? There was probably a couple months where it's like, listen, he's not too moldy yet. Can every dream you have was just shovel. Go on. Sorry. For now, Valosia, excuse me, not Valosia. Theodosia Stokes, Queen of the Dead, greets you. And I imagine there's not a lot of subtlety to your visits into Euroneros. You walk in and you have that, crossroads. Actually, I wonder if it still looks like the circle of wagons anymore.
My sense was that the crossroads was for him.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, it was always the idea that it was the the Romani wagon, right?
Right.
That traveling, the fact that it was on cross, because it's always the Oneros is always when you land there, it is always a place of travel, and you can
Mhm.
go to many places. Back then, it was the wagon, the open road,
Yeah, yeah.
and travel. And now, I don't know what it would feel like. Would it be because
In my
the
head, it's
mhm,
night.
oh
There's
yeah,
like some brush, and you can see a fire. And as you approach, there's a circle of wagons and some unfriendly
sure.
Romani actors sort of conjured up by her.
Well, but is that still what she thinks of? Because what I was going to suggest is because she's been to Metropolis and all
Hmm.
its places. I'm wondering if she would see more
Oh,
of
they come in and it's a giant necropolis every time now.
right and like
Yeah,
this this city that's actually big because Theo hasn't seen a big city until Metropolis, if I
true.
remember correctly, right? And now it's like, oh, cities are big, cities are huge, and you can go anywhere. You've got harbors and trains, and stuff like that. So yeah, yeah, because that was what it was in my head. Because it while the Daemon has put on a mask and persona, it's still Theodosia's. So
Hmm.
yeah, what do you think? Is it still the Romani wagons, or is she grown? Because it's a decade older. Time has passed. If nothing else, I feel like trains are
In her
probably
heart,
more. Hmm.
she's like her mother told her stories
Hmm.
of
And
the
so for
old
her, that's
people.
always travel.
So for her, that's what travel is.
Okay, yeah,
And
I
like
like
they
that.
traveled for years
Mhm.
in a
Yeah,
wagon.
okay.
So yeah.
No, that's
So
cool.
but there might be a city in the background kind of thing, and trains and stuff. You hear whistles in the night, sort
Sure.
of stuff encroaching on. But in Theo's mind, this is what
This is what
travel
travel
is.
is. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
I like that. Yeah. So, yeah, lots of grumpy, yeah, like you said, Romani Goetia actors, right?
Mhm.
Who, see you and they know that you are technically welcome here, but you always get the cold shoulder, the you're not one of us. Euroneros is not a welcome place for
Although
you.
I suspect that today there might be dancing and singing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
everything is like you walk in and it's that the coworker who's snarky and mean to you all the time and is suddenly smiling and like so pleased to see you and you're like something is up. There's a knife behind your back. But yeah, like the Romani there are welcoming you to the fire. They've got food for you. Here's strong drink. Music is playing. And yes, uh Theodosia Stokes, Queen of the Dead. Actually, you know what? I think as you sit down, right, the Romani become zombies and skeletons, and they're still pleasant folks. But
Yeah.
they're
They're
the
obviously dead though. Yeah.
yeah, and like the eyes kind of get the glazed over expression, and it definitely gets a twist to it, and she sits down across from you in her amazing you know Queen of the Damned gown that has just continued to change and update and
And I
like
imagine like a throne of skulls is
oh
rises
yeah,
up
well
out of the
i
ground. Is like,
think
yeah.
i think that's a bit much even for
Okay.
her, but yeah, but like especially you're a textile mill, like all the latest fashions, like
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I think there's this thing where the both of you, we never talk about it, we don't discuss it, but we both kind of like our fashion, we both kind of like our clothes, and it's like we do not talk about it because otherwise we're going to have to argue and fight about it. We just both acknowledge sometimes it feels good to be fabulous, right? It's
Hmm.
that kind of energy that she brings. And of course you're wearing normal clothes, because that's just who Theo is. But it's still the Romani pattern stuff, and it's got a lot of color,
Bright
but it's
colors
not
and yeah. Yeah.
a Victorian gown that you've seen in some of the catalogs, right, that get passed around. And so she's leaning on her, I imagine staff of bone, right? You've got your little cane. She's got,
Mm.
and she looks and she smiles. She doesn't even say anything.
This is
Oh, it's a great
uh,
idea.
no,
Oh, yes.
there's a price to be paid.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
we don't have to pay it.
the person we love most in the world will suffer because of what we've done.
She said she was fine with it,
She can't consent to something she doesn't understand the ramifications of.
and she will either learn to understand or it will break her. In one case, joins us, and I finally have a queen, or she's not strong enough and she wasn't worthy of us. Talk to that other one, Legba. He and his folk like to meditate and prepare their minds for challenges.
I'm just Her and I we've traveled a few steps down this road in the past, and
Oh, have you? I'm sorry, I missed that.
no, I know you were there for it, but how I keep hoping that she'll get that spark of curiosity, that need to follow the threads, but
I
it never
mean,
seems to happen,
yesterday she demanded to see the Tempest.
which was a shock.
I know. I was so excited. I'm absolutely terrified of what the Tempestari will do to her when you bring her there.
Well, I'm going to get permission first, and if they say no, then it's no.
Oh yeah, I'm sure a bunch of hot-headed, loud shouting, can't get along with each other people are all going to unanimously agree to let a sleeper into their sanctum.
Well, I'm going to put that in the hands of Petrichor.
Oh yes, because she is the shining example of diplomacy.
No, because she's just like them, loud and present. And I think most of the Tempestari, I think when they have a disagreement, it's whoever ends up shouting the loudest is the one who wins. And that's going to be Petrichor. I'm certain that if anyone can get permission for me to take her there, it will be Petrichor.
I will
And if
note
Petrichor
for
can't, then no one.
I will note for the audience back home, you may know more than Craig does about what happened. Because Craig has no idea what
I
happened
have
in
no
the
idea.
other
I
episode.
haven't seen it.
So yeah. But yeah, no, I'm sure she'll just yell louder than the rest, fire her six guns in the air, and they'll all just be totally fine with a sleeper showing up. Yeah, that's totally gonna work out.
I would be perfectly happy with begrudging acceptance. I don't expect them to be throwing a party and being all happy and cheerful.
You're asking the Diamond Order and the Seers of the Throne to agree on something, and you want it to be a sleeper. I don't know how you exist when I'm around. You are this happy, bubbly optimist. You need to be a realist. I know I'm probably throwing terms around that don't exist yet, but whatever. You need to understand there's some of these things just not going to happen. So you make her invisible.
I am not going to violate their sanctum in that way
If
for a bunch of reasons. Primarily, if we get caught, we're completely screwed. You want to unite the Tempestari in something? Get caught breaching their sanctum.
okay,
They'll agree
okay,
immediately on the course
you
of
have a
action.
point there. So we don't do invisible. We do yeah, we'll ask Legba incognito presence. They won't even censor.
That can They're going to have mage sight. They're going to know something is up. Incognito presence is definitely not perfect.
It's better than invisibility.
Yes, better than invisibility.
Not that we can do invisibility. I'm telling you, you're just in this tiny little bubble. There's so many other things we could be learning, and instead you're building a mill.
Tiny little bubble. I want to awaken the world.
Oh, see, I like it when you say things like that.
That's what I want to do.
Sorry, I was just enjoying the moment.
Yes. You have your focus, and I will admit that in my weaker moments, it is very appealing. But we have to find a way to deal with the lie.
And that's a big thing.
Mhm.
Before that, we got to figure out what the hell that machine is. Like Catherine
Yeah.
is terrific, but the machine thing, that was
I
big.
Yes. I've been trying not to think about it. It was pretty horrific.
Because if we get
But
hold of it, I bet
stop. Stop.
we could
Stop.
awaken the
No.
world.
No. No.
We
The
just have to figure out
only
what
thing
it's powered by.
The only thing we do with that machine is dismantle it.
Why? It's already built. People suffered to build that. Clearly. Do you want me to remind you? And she snaps her fingers, and the
And we're there.
tableau of that horrific scene appears off to the side. It's not in your face, but it's over there.
See, this is where I know where it comes from. I choose the path that says I've had things happen to me and they were unpleasant, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that no one else has to go through that. And I know that there's a part of me that would be very happy, and she looks at her Damon, to say, I went through it, they should have to too.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying the 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 device exists. It was built on the back of suffering and pain. Why should we not grab hold of it and turn it to something useful?
So you'll have to describe to me how producing more suffering is useful.
I'm not saying the gears, we're not making more gears, but the gears went into something that they were building. Whatever that was is going to be useful. I mean, if it's
Probably quintessence for an archmage, like Rilla did with us. Except our machine was a little different, but we were still gears in a machine, right?
what if you're Archmage Rilla? What if you're the one shifting 4 people awakening and sending them to one tiny, tiny town?
I guess she really was behind the whole thing.
Yeah. What if that was you instead? What if that was you grabbing hold, steering that ship into something useful?
So here's where we differ, because I look at what she did and the lack of care and concern, the lack of empathy, and I get angry that she treated us that way. And if I ever treated someone that way, I would hate myself for doing it.
But what if you awakened the world?
Price to pay.
Sure, some people
She-
might fall to the wayside.
I'm going to take everybody. I'm going to
Sure,
figure out how to do it.
some will end up like Jules. They'll be fine. Jules is a happy man. Has 2 wonderful daughters, I guess.
They are wonderful daughters.
And imagine, yeah, take everybody who wants to. They'll awaken if they're strong enough, and then the rest are sleepwalkers, and and some of them might struggle with what they've seen, but then the world has changed. Just we got to figure out what turns those gears and what those gears do. But we can turn it to something useful. Tell me I'm wrong. It's already built, or they're building it.
I I really hate that you can speak to parts of me that I don't really like.
Yeah, they're all me.
But
Like
you
we
never
got
speak to the
together.
you never speak to the parts that I choose to be instead.
Sure, I do.
Really.
Yeah, I agreed that Catherine finally did something useful and good. And I mean, she was asking to see the Tempest. That's a big step up for her. That's what I
Theo
think.
brandishes the cane. Careful.
I said nice things about her. She asked questions. It's the first time. The first time she asked real questions.
I
The
need
first
to
time she
learn how to
wanted to
do the
see
last one.
something.
This is true. I don't want to be hopeful. But
No, that would be ridiculous. But it's the right step. It's the right direction. Work with Legba and the cult and prepare her.
I
And then
will
end the
I
spell.
will concede that knowing how that engine works, understanding what it does and why is important.
Absolutely. More important than Catherine. The
Mm,
more important than making her awaken. If we have that, all the things we could do, whatever it does. I mean, if it's a weapon, we point it at who do we not like right now? The French? British?
anyone see her?
Oh, sure. I mean, but I meant like, to create a country. We'll bring in um what's her name? Akomi. I like her. Bring her and her people in, and any other the Romani that we can gather up, and all these people that the United States is abusing. We'll go collect up Legba's people and the enslaved people, and we'll bring them all together, and then we'll take over the world with whatever this machine is. Because they're making a weapon or some other thing that could be used as a weapon.
Okay. This has been great. You tempting me and teasing me with things that I in my heart want to do but choose not to. I really just um want to have a quick chat, but I want to try and talk to Catherine's name again. So I'll be back.
Do you even know what she's thinking about right now?
Um I want to see how there's a lot that Catherine's got to process and she's protected for now, but I'm curious about how much her daemon knows.
Like she's not thinking about her daemon. You got to figure it out. Like, and there's this subtle shift, right,
Mhm.
where she goes from being your nega Jiminy cricket
Yes.
to being the no. She is your daemon. She's reminding you. It's like, yeah, that's terrific. She points out towards the trail, and
Mhm.
she's like, yep, that way. But the only way you're making it across the bridge is if you focus in on what she's thinking about right now.
Her diary. She's been writing it all the time. Think she's thinking about because I let her see how much it hurts me, the lie, every time we do this, how it tears me up.
And as you're talking, with your daemon, you feel
Mhm.
yourself just like seated, but just everything is just sliding down that trail. Uh, and you slide into Catherine's Oneros, which I can't remember how we described before. I think was it the interior of the cat of the wagon? I can't remember, but
Yeah. Not a Romani wagon, but a, like, just a regular Western covered wagon.
yes, that's right. Yep.
Mhm.
But she is the one who thinks of trains now.
Mhm.
She is in a train station, probably one that you guys have gone out to visit. Because once the train got close, I bet a bunch of Purgatory Bluff are like, well, you know what? We have an excuse now. Let's go out and let's go see the train.
Yeah, I went
You
to the
know,
fort, right? Yeah.
yeah. And Yeah, so she thinks of a train station and the romanticism, especially for that era, right? Of you
Yeah, yeah.
step onto this thing and it can go anywhere. You just take it in a direction and then you get to another one, you get to another one, you can end up anywhere in America as long as it's to the east.
Mhm.
um and so yeah, there is her version of what Grand Central Station must be like, right? Which is wide open and it's got people milling all about train tracks and walking over them and trains zooming by and stuff like that. It is this hectic mess of a place, but it has a definite sense of like adventure and you could go anywhere, kind of thing.
It's hopeful and energetic and
Right,
bright and
exactly.
smiley and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And immediately you have that sense, the abyssal presence, right? Of like you need to be on your best behavior
Mm.
because everything is paradox. Um, and uh, yeah, I think there's probably like a conductor, right, who comes up to ticket.
And Theo will reach into a sleeve and pull out a ticket.
Sure. And the conductor who looks kind of like what you understand Catherine's dad to look like,
Mm.
takes the ticket and looks it over, hands it back to you, and gives you a long side eye and kind of walks away. It's
Sort of the
definitely
inception when they start to reveal, and yeah, people are yeah, yeah.
yep. Good reference. And yeah, just kind of watching you, and as you kind of meander through trains zipping by, you gotta wait as one train goes, and they fly by so fast. Your clothes
Faster than
fluttering.
possible. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. And you're way too close to them, like the wind would yoink you away, kind of stuff, but it doesn't. And you wait your turn, and then you cross over a couple tracks, and another train goes by. It's just everything zipping by, um, and then kind of make your way up to like a platform, and people are there, uh, and yeah, everybody's watching you, everything you do, and like conversation, like you get close to conversations and people continue their conversation, but they're watching you. You listen in and it's gobbledygook, lorem ipsum,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's just
It's
like they're
just
not actually
background
talking.
murmuring,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Just watching you.
So on a hunch, I'm gonna check the is the schedule board readable or is it gibberish?
Sure, but it keeps changing.
All right, so I'm gonna try and pinpoint the next departure because I'm
Kind
imagining.
of seeing if the daemon guides
Yeah.
you. Okay, I like that. Yeah, so like it's just this. Oh man, because we're not even in the era of like the type flipping. We're even before that. So yeah, it's like a chalkboard, right? And when you pay attention to one set of text or another, it disappears or
Mhm.
reappears and stuff like that. And I think it's just straight up curiosity, right? that comes up, and then of course the train arrives.
So Theo makes a note that her and Catherine need to take a train somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
File it away for later.
Yep. It's like, oh, you know what? She seems really into trains
Into
more than I thought
trains.
she was. Yeah. And yeah. So hop onto the train of curiosity.
Yeah.
And the interior is way bigger than a train actually is.
Mhm.
And in this day and age, we have mostly just the bench seats and stuff like that. There are some of the more luxury ones out east, but that's not stuff Catherine has seen.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's big and wide, and all the seats seem comfortable, and just what a wonderful, wonderful way to travel. There's
And
no
there's no way
horses.
it's like that in the real
Oh
world.
yeah.
Yes.
And off you go, zooming by landscapes, just speeding by, but at the same time you can see it so clearly, like just out the window. Just watch all the the wonderful landscape
It's
and
like
stuff.
the same landscape coming by every
Oh
time.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
like the
yeah.
little old backgrounds that they would do for movies
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like that in the big rolls. And then pulls into a station, and it's a it's like a school, but I imagine it's what Catherine thinks of as a university,
Okay.
right? So it's classrooms and lots of teachers, but everybody's still sitting in those little desks or the
Mhm.
long bench desks and stuff like that. Different little rooms, and everybody's teaching different things, and people are asking questions, and then you walk by what is actually probably a science lab, but it looks a lot like your lab, right?
Uh,
It's like, oh, yep, that I changed that. Yep, whoops.
mhm.
And well, actually, heck, in this day and age, we don't have too much science labs so much as bad science labs at
Yeah.
the and
It's not a
yeah.
it's not a science lab, it's a laboratory.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes. And yeah, just all sorts of questions and lots of Catherines in different rooms asking different questions. And a lot of it you can hear are like things that aren't like, that's not a question Catherine would ask, but
Mhm.
it's like, what does the color blue taste like? Kind of these nonsensical questions that are like, well, that is a curious question, right? But it's very Alice in Wonderland
Mhm.
kind of questions where it's just a little bit out there from the norm. And a woman that you immediately recognize as headmistress type, right? Big, big, oh my gosh, the graduation type gowns,
Right, right.
the what are they called? The hats. Oh my gosh. Not poster board. Mortarboard? Mortarboard hats?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Coming over and walking straight up to you, looking you up and down. Miss Stokes.
Madam, so lovely to see you again. I hope I'm not intruding.
You are intruding, and you have come uninvited.
I
But
hope I hope that my intrusion is not unpleasant.
it is acceptable. And like there's the hint
Mm,
of a smile, right?
and I'm satisfied with that.
Right. It is acceptable. Catherine is asking some interesting questions. And while she forgets, I do not.
You remember.
Some things, they're locked away, places that I cannot go because she cannot. But I
To
know they exist.
protect her, right?
Yes, yeah, the memories change so that thinking of these things do not shock her again. This, and she motions at you up and down, is an
It's like all of
interesting,
me.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
is an interesting new plan. Let her think and remember these things longer. Maybe it'll stick. I'm very curious.
Or maybe it'll just hurt all the more when they get stolen from her.
Maybe. But she does want to know.
Yes, that's heartening. I wish I knew how to help better.
I do too. This is a thing you know, but I don't. Because
I
she
don't know
doesn't.
how I don't know how to light that spark, but she does seem to be asking a lot of odd questions.
It's new. It's
Hmm.
interesting in here.
But it isn't. I mean, I look around and I don't. When I'm, it's like a fire, like a burning need for answers.
More like an ember right now. But
Yeah,
blow on it and maybe it will become something more.
you know her better than I do.
I do, but I also don't know what you know. What
True.
you've shown us seems interesting, terrifying, exciting.
I am worried what happens when my protection comes down.
As are we.
If you have any insight on how to light that fire, I would love to hear your counsel.
She's already on that path.
Are you
So,
aware of, and Theo just kind of looks up, are you aware of it?
of what?
The thing lurking in the background. You can't feel it, can you?
I. It seems not.
Hmm. I can feel it watching. It's the thing that takes stuff from her. I wonder if there's a way to make a safe place in here that it can't touch. A safe deposit box,
A bank vault.
something. A bank vault.
I will let Craig know.
Mm.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, yeah.
But, uh, no,
Theo's still probably going to try, but
oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, the headmistress, the daemon, nods and says, if you have some suggestion, I am open to it.
You know Cloak.
I, I have seen him, yes.
Would it be all right if I were to bring him with me on a visit here?
She makes this expression of,
Like, one of you is already too many.
yeah, but basically, and
Mhm.
oh, I know how she says this. I permit your presence because you are Theodosia Stokes, whom Catherine loves, to see her intimate thoughts, her memories, everything she is. So, of course, for the headmistress, the idea of a soul,
Mhm.
that's a religious thing, right? Um, to bring another here, I no, no,
That's fine.
no.
That's fine. I want to thank you for taking such good care of her.
It's not quite how that works, but thank you.
Taking good care of each other. How's that? Not really?
Because again, from her
Mhm.
perspective, right? She is right. She doesn't have especially because she's not an awakened daemon. It's not quite the same kind of relationship um, as you have, or any other mage has. Um, but we are what we are, and we will continue to be. This might be a new, interesting adventure, or a new memory that we lock up and forget. I, and like stops personally, think that a new adventure is interesting. The things you've shown us, terrifying, but exciting. And after being on the road and having adventures, um, the idea of being hungry for a few days and when will we next find food, or something has gone bad. Yes, those adventures, the disdain in her voice, were exciting, but this adventure promises to be more in every regard. Dangerous, exciting, fulfilling.
And I have a lot of hope. Very unlike me. But we'll take this trip together and see where the train stops. So she really likes trains, eh?
Ever since we went up to the station, she's now excited at the idea of taking one to the coast, to the capital, or New York, or
Well, we just might have to take a trip to the railhead of the fort and see where the track leads us.
she would like that.
Thank you for tolerating my presence.
I don't have a lot of other options other than destroying you, and I think, well, we don't want to do that.
You know I would leave if you asked me to.
Correct. I'm saying if you didn't leave,
Mm,
I have but one choice. You also keep your hands to yourself. That
I
makes
do.
this easier.
I do. I I'm aware of where I am and the damage that could be caused here.
Is that
I've
common?
always what's that?
Is that common?
Common?
Yes, among others who visit this place with others. You say this as
There's
if there are those who would arrive and rampage.
this is true. There are
Hmm.
those who would do that, but you have you are not without defenses.
No, but then I don't know how good they are.
Ooh.
We are not testing that.
That's
I don't
fine.
want you to know how good my defenses are either.
I understand and I will respect your privacy.
Like at this point, like there's that lull in
Mhm.
conversation, and you look over and like there are numerous Catherines and Catherine like Goetia poking their heads out of corridors and hallways and looking and just watching, and headmistress kind of looks back and forth and then looks to you. I believe it is time for you to return home.
Theo rises and gives a bow and a curtsy. Of course.
Yep. And walks
Thank you for
you
your time.
back to the train station, and the train
Mhm.
takes you all the way back to the Romani camp in Euro Neros. Because I imagine you're not.
There's no trains or anything. It just rolls up.
Yeah,
I
like
love it.
the train hits that wall to
Mhm.
return back, and then you're just kind of skating through the air. It's just like, oh yes, forward momentum. And I think that's a good place for us to end it.
That's a great spot to end it.
Good. Oh, thank you all for coming by, hanging out with Craig and I, having a good time, having some fun. Also, uh, not to spoil the episode with Chris if folks haven't seen it, but yet another weird situation where I get to be the significant other to one of my players and gentle and intimate moments. Happy Pride!
I mean, it's
Yeah.
awesome. That's kind of the thing about being a DM, right? You're basically in a low key relationship with all your
With
players.
all your players, yeah. Yep, trust me, I'm well aware. Um, yeah, it's very interesting. For those of you who've never DM'd, I really do suggest that you get to meet people and know them in weird, interesting ways. But yes, thank you all for joining us. If you want to come by and talk about this episode or any of the other episodes or whatever, that's Discord, or our Discord is www.eatinto.space. I'll get that there eventually. And of course, if you want to support us monetarily, that's staylucky.club, which we, named after Craig. If you don't know why, you should go watch The Rookery and figure it out. Cool. Thank you all. And we'll see you on the next episode.